All right, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. And if there's other joinees that come in, well, we can just um, refer to the recording. I will be recording this, and I'll send it over to the Hocking Hills team, and they can send it over to you guys. Um, so my name is Johnny. You guys might have met me whenever I was in Ohio. I don't know. I met a lot of people, so I may have met some of you, but if not, I was the project manager for the Avivo team. We will be running, so now that we've got the majority of members live, we'll be running a series of webinars to kind of focus on different areas of the system. So we've got a couple of different points to cover this time, and then we've got a time for questions as well. And right now we've got the webinar set up for a quarterly, once a quarter, just to make sure that we're touching every point that may come up. But if the interest rises and there's more need for more often webinars and more frequent webinars, we will we'll run them more frequently. So today's topic is going to cover a couple of different things. I can't see if you raise your hand, but if you have any questions, feel free to send it in the chat, and I will. It'll show up here for me, and I'll be able to read it. So I've got here just our demo space. It'll look similar to what you may be seeing if you're already using Avivo. So what I want to cover today is one of the main things that has come up a lot since we started this this whole transition from the whole reservations online system to Avivo, and that is the integration to channels that you guys may be using. So we've got, I guess, two forms of connections. One of them is the way you were connected previously. The other one is a full integration to the channel. So we've got iCal, which is the way you guys may have been used to working with the channels, and we've got API full integration. Previously, Reservations Online only offered iCal, but with Avivo, you've got access to both. And we never really want to or do use iCal with full API integration because you get so much more in a way more robust and streamlined connection with API integration. So if you guys have iCal, then you already know what happens when you receive a booking. All that happens is you get a block in that unit for the guest. There's no guest data; it just blocks the dates out, and it allows you to, I guess, not risk running an overbooking because it'll block it. But what you guys may not be aware of is iCal is not as consistent, not as quick as API. So in most cases, it takes about 20 minutes for the iCal to show up, or for the Airbnb or VRBO to send the iCal information to Avivo. In some cases, depending on what they're doing, it might take a little bit longer. So if you're in your busy season and somebody books you on one of these channels, it may take a bit for that to be able to block out here in your calendar, and by which time somebody might have booked you on hockinghills.com, which gets a lot of traffic, and the system wouldn't have known that you've already gotten that cabin booked. So it could result in a negative experience. That's the main issue. In terms of what the information passes over, the API is instant, live in real time. So as soon as somebody clicks book on any of the channels, it immediately shows up in your system, in your Avivo system, and it updates anywhere else, your website, the Hocking Hills, everywhere else that cabin has been booked. Now you'll notice in my demo version here, if I zoom in, you've got, just move this, you've got logos in the corners of these bookings. So this is how you'll be able to tell when you have a full API integration. You can see all of your guests in this one centralized calendar. This is regardless of if they booked you on your website, on hockinghills.com, or on Airbnb, or a call-in. You see the logos of where that guest came from. So you immediately know where they're coming from. You don't have to go across 3 different calendars to be able to see different guest names. You can see it all in this one centralized calendar. Now, when you click on reservations, instead of just seeing iCal, you are able to see all of the details that the guests input in Airbnb and VRBO or any other channel you use in here. You'll see the guest name and email, the room they selected, the nights they selected. Any notes that they entered will be displayed here because they can pass through notes from the channel. If the channel is one of the channels that allows cards to be passed through, if you're using Eviivo for payments, then the card that the guest entered into the OTA also passes through into your Eviivo system, and you're able to see that card, which gives you a couple of good benefits. So one, you have full control of the card payment, not the channel. And so for one, if you're using one of the preferred partners that Avivo integrates with, you get better credit card rates. So as an example, Intuit's rates range between 1.5 to 2.5%. Whereas if VRBO charges a card for you, it charges you a flat 3%. So you save a little bit on percentages there. And the other advantage is, of course, cash flow, right? So if somebody books you today for mid-October on VRBO, depending on how you're set up with them, you likely won't get that money until that guest checks in. Whereas with the full API integration, if somebody books you today for mid-October, if your deposit policy is 100% due at the time of booking, VRBO through the API key will send the credit card to your Avivo system. Your Avivo system will charge that card automatically. Those funds will be in the account the next day. And then the third option is, of course, protecting yourself. So if VRBO, if you're doing iCal and VRBO or Airbnb are doing everything for you, if something happens, somebody trashes your place or somebody breaks, something, you've got to file a claim through them. You've got to hope that they accept it. They have to go through the guest. The guest may deny doing this or may say it wasn't their fault. And you're kind of left in this going back and forth to see if you can get covered for that damage. Whereas if you have full API integration, you've got the credit card details. Your terms and conditions say if there's any extra cleaning or damage done to the property, the card on file will be charged. You can simply go into the system. You've got the card saved already. You can charge whatever you're charging and quickly charge that card. So that allows you to protect yourself, your investments, your properties with reservations, not just coming from your website or Hocking Hills, but also from any other channels. So those are some of the main differences between iCal, which basically just blocks off a date, versus full API integration. Full API integration, you've got full control. You see full guest details. All your communication is sent to the guest. So if you've got automated emails that are being sent out, they deliver to the guest. So you never have to worry about communicating anything different from guests coming from VRBO or Airbnb versus your other channels. It's just a lot more reliable. So that's one of the main topics we're covering. We're covering a couple other things in this webinar as well. And let me just quickly check the chat and see if there's no questions there. Guys, if you guys have any questions, just send them through in the chat. Or if you want me to cover something more in detail, and I'll definitely cover that. But if not, then we'll just move on to the next topic. And that's going to be modifying reservations. So I think that's come up a few times. There are a couple of different ways to modify a reservation. You can obviously modify it in terms of moving it from one cabin to the next, moving dates from maybe a 3-night stay to a 5-night stay and things like that. So there's a couple of different ways to modify it in that sense. Then you can also add charges, right? Let's say the guest didn't add a pet fee whenever they booked, but then they contact you and say, hey, you know what? I am going to bring my pet. Your cabin's pet friendly. So we'll show you how to modify those as well. And then we'll go over in detail of the tabs in the bookings. In case you may not know how these work, or if you want some more knowledge on what things you can do in them, we'll cover those in detail. So let's go through and modify a booking in terms of, let's say, changing to a different cabin or different date. So if we hit modify, we've got this booking is for 1 night. Let's say they called me and said, well, I'm going to extend my stay and do 3 nights. As long as you've got the nights available in that one unit, you can add the nights and it will automatically change the rate to what the extra nights are. Now, of course, you can decide to give them a discount or do different things to them. You can, if you've got different rates, you can add a different rate. You can add a promotion if you built promos in your system. And if you guys don't know how to build promos, we can also cover that in a future webinar. Or you can altogether just type in a specific amount. So $855 would be the rate for 3 nights, but I didn't have those nights booked, and I'm going to cut this guest a break. I'll just charge $675. And then of course, it shows my additional charges, which would include service fees, and then taxes and things like that. So once I've got my modification there, I hit modify, and that'll modify my booking. And then now that changes from a 1-night stay to a 3-night stay. Now let's say the same guest calls me and says, hey, I'm going to bring my pet. They didn't add the pet initially, but they want to, or sends an email. Very simple to do. You're going to go to charges. You see the charges that are already added on there, and we're simply just going to choose pets. Now, if you don't have a certain pet fee already created in the system, the amount would be 0. But if you created the charge and your charges in the system, it would just show whatever you've created the charge to be. But in this case, we're just going to say the pet fee is $50. And now you can do it as a one-time charge or $50 per night. If you do it as a one-time charge, you just hit add. If you do it per night, you're going to do 3 because they're staying 3 nights. Let's just say you do it as a one-time charge, hit add. Now you've got it added in the system. Actually, I didn't add it. Let's see. Okay, you've got the charge there. Now in your payments, if this guest is paid fully, there should only be a balance of 50. In this case, we don't have a payment collected because this is a demo space. But if your guest had paid fully, obviously the balance would be 0, but now it would show 50. So if you've added the fee there to the guest, you can now, if you're using Aviivo for payments, you can choose via the system and you can charge it, and then you can send the guest a receipt as well. The other topic we want to cover is payments as well. So some of you guys may already be using Aviivo for payments, which simplifies things really, because you can connect one of our preferred merchants to the system and be able to automatically collect charges from guests from anywhere, or manually charge cards. You can also send payment request links. So let's say a guest calls you and says, hey, I want to book your studio cabin for Sunday through Wednesday. Okay, let's quickly go through and add that reservation. 3 nights. We'll just name it test, and we're going to name test. There we go. Okay, you've added the booking to your system. Now you can say, all right, I've got your reservation in. I'm going to send you a request link. Click the link to make your payment. So all you do is hit request payment and hit send. If you've got the payment integration in the system, it's already connected to your bank. So the guest will receive this email. This is just an example, but this is what it would look like. It would have the details of the reservation, all of your policies, cancellations, things like that your emails have. And it would have a link where they can click. It opens up a secure payment section where it has all the details of the reservation, a place to put their credit card, and they can make their payment without you having to call them, get those credit card details and things like that. So that's just one of the many customization options that come around payments. Of course, if you're already using it, you already know the advantages of it. But those of you that might be doing payments separately, you could really simplify your life as far as getting payments integrated into the system. And this is, again, for reservations that call you, reservations that happen on your website in Hocking Hills. And if you use all channels besides Airbnb, you can collect payment on those as well. We are going to cover, so we covered modify, iCal, schedule changes. So we're going to cover the last item that we have on the list is for the email scheduling. So with Aviivo, you've got the option or the ability to create automated emails, pre or post departure and pre or post arrival emails. I'm sure a lot of you guys, or most of you guys, already have those set up. But we want to cover how you can set those schedules up in case you may not set them up yourself, or in case you need to change them. I know a lot of the emails we've helped you set up, and maybe the Hocking Hills team has helped you set up. So we can do this as well. Elisa, I do see your question. Let me let me get to it in just a second. I'm going to show this and I'll get to your question. So for the schedules, if you've already got the email, let's just go ahead and set a new email up. Let's say we're going to set up a pre-arrival email. It's very simple to do. The system pretty much walks you through, so you don't really mess up as far as on the schedule. So you've got email description here. We're just going to do, and then it asks you when should the email send. So your schedule is how many days you could do, days, hours, or weeks before check-in. So if it is a pre-arrival, you probably want this email to arrive at least a couple of days, maybe a day in advance. So if you're doing days, you could do like 3 days before check-in, or maybe 5 days before check-in. And they should be, you know, things that the guests should know when they're arriving, like check-in instructions, how to get into the property. If it's a lock code, or do they go somewhere to check in? If it's maybe a property that's in a secluded area, you want to make sure that you describe, you know, what streets are around there, or maybe what back streets are there. Things like that are things that would be included in the pre-arrival. To build the emails, it's really simple. So obviously your guest message can include a nice personalized message, just something like, hey, we're looking forward to seeing you. You know, please email us, call us if you have any questions. And then you start building your email. And with Avivo, it's really simple. So you've got the logo and the header where it starts. And then let's say I want to add in the guest details. So this will fill in whatever details the system's sending this email to. I want to add in the reservation summary. So of course they can refer to what their check-in, check-out details are. I want to add the room details so they can see that it shows the cabin that they're checking in. I want to add in, of course, check-in instructions, and these will pull from whatever check-in instructions you typed in this specific cabin. And so that will just fill in those there so the guest is aware. And those will also include the door lock code if you set those up in there. You can customize your emails to look really nice. So if you want to maybe add a little glam to your emails, you can upload photos, or you can choose from the photos that are already in your gallery. Let's choose this one. Doesn't matter. I'm just update. So that just adds a photo to your, so right under accommodation, you can maybe add a nice photo of the cabin. It just makes your emails look really nice and professional when they're being sent out to the guests, which obviously makes your company look a lot better in terms of looking in front of the guests. And then once you've got the email the way you want it, you just hit save here at the bottom, and boom, it's done. It's important to note that you do have to change this to active and save it once you are finished. So this is a step that I think a lot of the members have forgotten. They set up their emails and then they wonder why they weren't sending out. It's got to be set to active. If you don't set it to active, you will have the email in your pre-made templates, but it won't send automatically. So if I'm in a booking and I'm in the communications tab, I will have that email saved here and I can manually send it, but it won't be sending automatically at the schedule that I gave it. So important to note, keep that in mind. Let me go into your question, Liza. You said, so with a guest who books through HockingHills.com and VRBO, with all the payment collection be done automatically? So the answer is, depends on how you want it to be set up. If you've got, deposits, 100% of the deposits due when they book, and you've got the integration to payment, and you've got automated collecting of deposits, then yes, it'll be automated. With VRBO, you definitely want it to be automated, because any guest that's booking on VRBO, they don't know that it's actually VRBO collecting the money, or maybe an Avivo integration collecting the money. So when they book, they're expecting for their credit card to be charged whatever the deposit policy is, right? Whether it's a night, 50% or 100. So if they book, you don't want that process to delay. So as soon as that happens, they come through, your system charges that card. With Hocking Hills, you've got the option, and of course with your website, you've got the option to make them automated or manual. We always advise that it's automated is the way to go, because it frees up your time and it saves things. But if you're the type that likes to do vetting, or maybe reach out to the guest to gather some kind of documents, things like that. You can make that manual, and then you manually charge the card when you decide you accept the booking in the system itself. So answer live, done. But that's a good question. I think the last thing that I didn't, no, I think I covered that. So we've got about 10 minutes. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I apologize for the delay on starting with this. I think we had planned on doing this last Thursday, and then we had planned on delaying this for a week. And then there was some confusion on that. But going forward, there'll be plenty of notice being sent out for these. And if you guys can do us a favor and send Hocking Hills anything that you would like to see more of, any specific questions, so we can really tailor these to what you guys want to see, what you want to learn. And this will be myself. I work for Avivo. I've been working at Avivo for 4 years, and then Fabio, which a lot of you guys know, will be given these. So we're both knowledgeable, and we both can show you and help you answer these. So I'll give a few more minutes to see if anybody comes up with any questions, and they don't have to be related to the topics we covered. And then we can close this one and then go forward with the other ones. I'll send the recording. Okay, looks like there's another question coming through. Okay, Julie and Jason, can I send an email that doesn't have a schedule or description, just a random note to a guest? Seems like we are limited to pre-arrival, post-arrival, departure, etc. So yes and no, you're not limited to just those. You can go into any reservation. You can go into the communications tab. This reservation has the email already, and you can choose any of your templates. Now, if you want to just be able to send an email to the guest with anything, you can choose, you can create, this is what I would advise. It doesn't matter what schedule you choose on here because you're not going to activate it. So really the schedule is not going to matter. So let me choose a pre-arrival. And I'm going to label this manual email. The schedule doesn't matter because I'm not going to activate it. And I'm not going to have anything but my logo on there. And I'm going to save. Actually, maybe I can add guest details and maybe reservation summary. Guest details. Okay. So now if I go into the communications, I will be able to see the manual email. So keep in mind, this email has nothing but my logo, the guest details, which will obviously be filled with whatever details this reservation is, and the reservation summary, which is this. And then I can type my email. This is if I want to send the guest any specific email, what have you. Let me just, as an example, do that. So you've got an email template in any of your bookings. When you want to send any type of email to the guest, not related to pre or post arrival, other information, and you can see what the email would look like, right? It has your logo, whatever you intended to send to the guest, and then the two things that we dragged over in this email, which is the guest details and the reservation, just so this guest knows that this email is related to them. But you don't even have to include these two. If you just want, you could just have your logo and then that. And instead of using your email to email back and forth, you just do it in the bookings into the guest. And that way, it's the way you do that. So it's kind of a simple way to be able to email guests through the system. If that answers your question, if you want me to clarify that any further, let me know. You can send another chat in. But that's typically what I would do if you just want to have a way to just email guests quickly without having to go through a pre or post arrival fully customized email template. I'll give just maybe another minute or two, see if any other questions come up, and then we'll wrap it up, and I'll email the the final webinar recording to Hocking Hills team, and that way you guys can watch it or see things more in detail. All right, it doesn't look like there are any other questions coming up. So I'll stop the share here, and oh, spoke too soon. There's one more question. Okay, Patricia, yes, we will be sending out the recording. That's all right, no worries. In this webinar, we covered iCal versus API integration to channels. We covered payments, modifying bookings, and schedule setting of emails, and kind of brief email customization. And then, yes, I will stop the recording. I'll send it to the Hocking Hills team, and they can send it out to everybody. And we'll be doing these quarterly. In fact, we actually may do another one next month once we kind of gather what kind of things people want to see. And we actually may run it monthly instead of quarterly. But this was the first one, and the subsequent ones will be, we'll send out plenty of information, and so that way you can join in plenty of time. All right. So thanks for everybody that joined. Be looking out for that email. And then any other questions you guys have, be sure to send it to the Hocking Hills team or us. See you guys.